Hello viewers, the topic we are going to discuss today is attention, environmental and personal factor. I am Durgesh Nandini, working as a faculty in Center for Health Psychology, University of Hyderabad. This topic is having several objectives. At the end of this chapter, the students can answer the following questions. First, what is attention? Second, what are the nature of attention? Third, what are the functions of attention and related theories to attention? Fourth, what are different types of attention? Fifth, what are determinants factor of attention? Lastly, does environmental factor affects attention? First, we will focus on objective 1. Attention is taking possession of the mind in clear and vivid form of one out of what seem several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thoughts. It implies withdrawal from something in order to deal effectively with others. Attention is the means by which we actively possess a limited amount of information from the enormous amount of information available through our senses, our stored memories, and our other cognitive processes. Attention is the behavioral and cognitive processes of selectively concentrating on a discrete aspect of information, whether deemed subjective or objective, while ignoring other perceivable information. It is a state of arousal. It is the taking possession by mind in clear and vivid form of one out of what seems several simultaneous object or chain of thought. According to Fletcher, attention represents a selection or singling out of certain aspects of the observable environment to the exclusion of other which may at the time be impinging upon the sense organs. Attention is the taking possession by the mind in clear and vivid form of one out of what may seem several simultaneously possible object or trains of thoughts. Attention is not just about centering your focus on one particular thing. It also involves ignoring a great deal of competing for information and stimuli. Attention allows you to tune out information, sensations, and perceptions that are not relevant at the moment and instead focus your energy on information that is seen. Not only does our attention system allows us to focus on something specific in our environment while tuning out irrelevant details, it also affects our perception of the stimuli surrounding us. It includes both conscious and unconscious processes. In many cases, conscious processes are relatively easy to study. Unconscious processes are harder to study simply because you are not conscious of them. Researchers stated that some active attentional processing of sensory and of remembering information processes without our conscious awareness. For example, writing your name requires little conscious awareness. You may write it while consciously engaging in other activities. In contrast, writing a name that you have never encountered requires attention to the sequence of letters. Nature of attention. It is selective and indivisible. Attention is continuous. Attention is a mental process and not a mental power. Attention increases the clarity of the object. Attention creates readiness for doing our work. Attention is a selective process. Attention is always changing. Attention thoughts of conscious life is impossible in the absence of attention. Here are 4 main functions of attention. First, signal detection and vigilance. We try to detect the appearance of a particular stimulus. Air traffic controllers, for example, keep an eye on all traffic near and over the airport. Second, search. We try to find a signal amidst distractors. For example, when we are looking for our lost cell phone on an autumn leaf-filled hiking path. Third, selective attention. We choose to attend to some stimuli and ignore others, as when we are involved in a conversation at a party. Fourth, divided attention. We prudently allocate our available attentional resources to coordinate our performance of more than one task at a time, as when we are cooking and engaged in a phone conversation at the same time. We will discuss vividly about all the four major functionalities. Signal detection theory can be discussed in the context of attention, perception and memory. Attention, paying enough attention to perceive objects that are there. Perception, perceiving faint signals that may or may not be beyond your perceptual range, such as a very high pitched tone. Memory, indicating whether you have not been exposed to a stimulus before, such as whether the word champagne appeared on the list that was being memorized. Usually, the presence of a target is difficult to detect. Thus, we make detection judgments based on inconclusive information with some criteria for target detections. The number of hits is influenced by where you place your criteria for considering something a hit. In other words, how willing are you to make false alarms? For example, in the case of the lifeguard, the consequences of a miss are so grave that lifeguard lowers the criteria for considering something as a hit. In this way, he or she increases the number of false alarms to boost hits or correct detections. This trade-off often occurs with medical diagnosis as well. For example, it might occur with highly sensitive screening tests where positive results lead to further tests. Thus, overall sensitivity to target must reflect a flexible criterion for declaring the detection of a signal. If the criterion for detection is too high, then the doctor will miss illness or they misses it. If the criteria is too low, the doctor will falsely detect illnesses that does not exist, which is false alarms. Sensitivity is measured in terms of hits minus false alarms. What is vigilance? Vigilance refers to a person's ability to attend to a field of stimulation over a prolonged period, during which the person seeks to detect an appearance of a particular target stimulus of interest. When being vigilant, the individual watchfully waits to detect a signal stimulus that may appear at an unknown time. Typically, vigilance is needed in settings where given stimulus occurs only rarely, but requires immediate attention as soon as it does occur. Military officers watching for a sneak attack are engaged in a high-stake vigilance task. Search, which also called as active looking. Have you ever picked up your parents or friends at a crowded airport and tried to locate them among the masses of people streaming out of the terminals? Search involves actively and often skillfully seeking out a target. Specially, search refers to a scan of the environment for particular features, actively looking for something when you are not sure where it will appear. As with vigilance, when we are searching for something, we may respond by making false alarms. The police actively search an area where a crime like a bank robbery has occurred, trying to find the robbers before they can escape. Search is made more difficult by distractors, non-target stimuli that divert our attention away from the target stimulus. Selective attention. At any given moment, we are subjected to a constant barrage of sensory information. The blare of a car horn from the street outside, the chatter of your friend, the click of the keys as you type a paper for school, the hum of the heater as it keeps your room warm on a brisk autumn day. But in most cases, we do not pay attention to each and every one of these sensory experiences. Instead, we center our attention on certain important elements of our environment while other things blend into background or pass us by completely unnoticed. So, how exactly do we decide what to pay attention to and what ignore? Imagine that you are at a party for a friend hosted at a busy restaurant. Multiple conversations, the clicking of plates and forks, and many other sounds compete for your attention. Out of all these noises, you find yourself able to tune out the irrelevant sounds and focus on a amusing story that your dinner partner shares. In this regard, two theories come in front for selective attention. First, Broadbent's filter theory. Second, Treisman's attenuation theory. One of the earliest theories of attention was Donald Broadbent's filter model. Building on this research conducted by Cherry, Broadbent used information processing metaphor to describe human attention. He suggested that our capacity to process information is limited in terms of capacity, and our selection of information to process takes place early on the perceptual process. Treisman suggested that while Broadbent's basic approach was correct, it failed to account for the fact that people can still process the meaning of attended messages. Treisman proposed that instead of a filter, attention works by utilizing an attenuator that identifies a stimulus based on a physical properties or by meaning. Divided attention. Divided attention is the last part of four major aspects. Divided attention plays an important role in our lives. How often are you engaged in more than one task at a time? Consider driving a car as an example. You need to be constantly aware of threats to your safety. Suppose you fail to select one such threat, such as a car that runs a red light and is headed directly towards you as you enter an intersection. The result is that you may become an innocent victim of a horrible car accident. Moreover, if you are unsuccessful in dividing your attention, you may cause an accident. Most automobile accidents are caused by failure in divided attention. Now we will discuss about types of attention. Types of attention: non-volitional, second is volitional. Non-volitional is divided into enforced and spontaneous. Volitional is divided into implicit and explicit. This type of attention is aroused without the play of will. Here, we attend to an object or condition without making any conscious effort, that is, a mother's attention towards her crying child. Again example, attention towards the member of opposite sex and towards bright color, etc. The attention which is aroused by instincts is called enforced non-volition attention. A young man, when we remarks on his sex instincts or his curiosity, he becomes quite attentive in his task. The other subtype of non-volitional attention produced by the sentiments is called spontaneous non-volitional attention. It is the result of properly developed sentiment towards the object or idea of a person around which our sentiments are formed with. volitional or voluntary attention. When the exercised will is called upon, it becomes volitional attention because it demands the conscious efforts on our part. It is least automatic and spontaneous, like that of non-volitional attention. Attention paid at the time of solving an assigned problem of mathematics, answering question in an examination hall, and so on comes under volitional attention category. Volitional attention is further divided into categories. A single act of volition is sufficient to bring about attention in the case of implicit attention, that is, for single act of will can arouse attention. In explicit volition attention we need repeated acts of will to sustain it, that is, here attention is obtained by repeated effort. Determinants of attention. One of the two types are environmental factors or condition, second internal factors. Environmental factors in attention. We are familiar with the idea that other people can affect our mental condition, and we know that physical interaction with the environment can cause physical fatigue. And even more mysterious, how can watching the surf, having a view of trees out of your window, or playing with a kitten, how can this relieve mental fatigue in your head? Nature of stimulus. All types of stimulus are not able to bring the same degree of attention. A picture attracts sensation more readily than words. Among the pictures of human beings invite more attention, and those of human beings related to beautiful women or handsome men who attracts more attention. In this way, an effective stimulus should always be chosen for capturing maximum attention. Intensity and size of stimulus. In comparison with the weak stimulus, the immense stimulus attracts more attention of an individual. Our attention becomes easily directed towards a loud sound, a bright light, or a strong smell, and also a large building will be more readily attended to than a small one. Contrast, change and varieties. Change and variety strike attention more easily than sameness or absence of change. That is, we do not notice the ticking sound of a clock, but on the wall until it stops ticking. That is, any change in the attention to which you have been attracted immediately capture your attention. The factor, contract or change in highly responsible for capturing attention of the organism and contributes more than the intensity, size or nature of stimulus. Repetition of stimulus. Repetition is the factor of great importance in securing attention, because one may ignore a stimulus at first instance, but if it is repeated for several times, it captures our attention. That is, a misspelled word is more likely to be noticed if it occurs twice in the same paragraph than if it occurs only once. While giving lecture, the important aspects of the speech are often repeated so that the attention of the audience can be easily directed to the valuable points. Movement of the stimulus. The moving stimulus catches our attention more quickly than a stimulus that does not move. We are more sensitive to objects that move in our field of vision. That is, advertisers make use of this fact and try to catch the attention of people through moving electric lights. Internal or subjective factors. These factors predispose the individual to respond to objective factors, to attend to those activities that fulfill his desires and motives and suit his interest and attitude. It is a mental state of the perceiver. Interest is said to be the mother of attention. We attain the objects in which we have interest. We would like to watch a movie or serial in TV because we are interested in the subject around which the movie or serial revolves. In any get-together, if any subject our interest is discussed, that attracts our attention easily and makes us to participate in the discussion. In our day-to-day life, we pay attention to the stimulus we are interested in. Motives. Our basic needs and motives to a great extent determine our attention. Thirst, hunger, sex, curiosity, fear are some of the important motives that influence attention. That is, small children get attracted towards edibles. Mindset. Person's readiness to respond determines his attention. If we are expecting a stimulus, occurrence of that stimulus along with many other stimuli may not come in the way of attending to that particular stimulus. At a time when students are expecting the examination timetable, by the end of the semester, the timetable put out on the notice board along with other notices would attract their attention easily. Moods and attitudes. What we attend to is influenced by the moods and attitudes. When we are disturbed or in angry mood, we notice the smallest mistake of others very easily. Likewise, our favorable and unfavorable attitudes also determine our attention. After discussing subjective and objective factors, we realize that these factors are interrelated. How much or in what way we attend to a stimulus depends on subjective as well as objective factors. In personal, attentions are two types, auditory and visual. Auditory attention is a cognitive process that allows the listener to focus selectively on the stimulus of interest. A stimulus while ignoring irrelevant competing, so the listener consciously selects the stimulus which he will watch and process its response. The auditory attention of students can be influenced by hearing impairment, causing impairment in attention and comprehension skills, and thus compromising of performance and learning of these children. Visual. You are in the kitchen standing at the stove, looking out window into the backyard. What do you see? A swimming pool, the dog chasing a squirrel, whatever it is, whatever object, color or movement you zoom in on, the results from the proper operation of your visual attention. After all, seeing is more than our eyes' ability to view external stimuli. Seeing is a complex process that allows us to efficiently deal with massive amounts of external information by selecting relevant information and filtering out irrelevant information. As we observe the environment around us, that information is stored in our working memory so that we are aware of potential hazards around us. This sort of focus allows us to perform everyday tasks such as walking and driving without injuring ourselves. Conclusion. Attention remains a major area of investigation within education, psychology, neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience and neuropsychology. Areas of active investigation involve determining the source of the sensory cues and signals that generate attention, the effects of these sensory cues and signals on the tuning properties of sensory neurons, and the relationship between attention and other behavioral and cognitive processes like working memory and psychological vigilance. Attention is a complex cognitive function which is essential for human behavior. Attention is a selection process for a external, that is sound, image, smell, or internal, that is thoughts, event which has to be maintained at a certain level of awareness. It is not a stable but rather a fluctuating skill. Attention also varies across culture. Thank you.